This week on The Big Show, we conclude our celebration of Black women directors in the month of September with award-winning documentary filmmaker and founder of production company Trilogy Films, Dawn Porter. She will discuss the second of her two docs released this year, including The Way I See It. Plus, show correspondent Wilson Morales will recap the week in entertainment. It will have a review of Residue, the aforementioned The Way I See It, and The Glorias, all on the latest episode, which would be 418 of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. Let's go. All right, and welcome to the latest episode of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. I am Tim Gordon, and you will notice that Charles Kirkland, who generally is here with me every week, is not here. Think that he is arriving now, having had an engagement earlier today out of town, and he has consented to join us. And as we wait for Charles to come on board, also coming up a little later on, we will conclude the last of our weekends with our saluting Black women directors with documentary filmmaker Dawn Porter, which is coming up a little later on in the show. Wilson Morales will be here momentarily to give us the recap in the week in film. And I really want to talk to him about Aldous Hodge, the news yesterday, of course, that he's now a part of the DCEU playing Hawkman in the upcoming Black Adam, which probably is either going to be dropping in 2021, 2022. Wilson Morales will let us know that as well. Charles Kirkland, how are you, my kind friend?
I'm pretty good today. I'm happy to be here. Didn't know whether I was going to make it or not.
And I figured that you would come on and grace us with your presence whenever you were allowed to get here. I see you rocking the collared shirt. I guess that's our new thing now. We collaring up every week because, you know, we got the ladies on week to week. But go ahead.
Well, that's not the reason why I'm wearing a collar, but I'll say, yeah, that's why I'm wearing the collar today.
It looks good on you, my friend. So yeah, big show today. 3 movies to review. And again, I'm not sure if I've already went over this after the tease, but The Glorias, the documentary, The Way I See It, which is in theaters today, as well as Residue from, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his first name accurately. I think it's spelled Merwi Jarima. I'm assuming it's Merwi Jarima, which is Halle Jarima's son.
Right.
All right. So we'll have
from Sankofa.
From Sankofa. So Halle Jarima is someone I've known for a couple of decades. So we will review his son's film a little later on. And as I said, Dawn Porter will join us shortly. But without any further ado, let's bring on our show correspondent, who I was thrilled when I got an email earlier this week that he was able to secure his IG account from his old site, and he has gotten it back. Of course, that site now, and matter of fact, I'm not going to mess it up. I'm going to let him kind of explain it for himself. But it is Wilson Morales. Wilson, I was just saying, you got your IG back this week, man. So I was waiting to the day to let you kind of break it down and explain. So go ahead, man.
Well, no, basically, you know, there were people who wanted to take control of an account that I started, that I built, and it was proven that I built it. It was my own account. So for anybody who's watching this, my IG, I have this Black Film and TV one, which is one thing, and then my personal account is Wilson Morales Film. So
very nice, very nice.
Anybody who's known me for a long time and know what I do, you know, you can find me there as well. Wilson Morales Film.
What do you do, Wilson? I mean, since you brought that up, what do you do?
You know, my agenda is always to promote, you know, Black talent in front and behind the screen from the TV, film, and theater perspective. You know, as I always say, I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, you know, when you look at PNC, Penske buying up The Hollywood Reporter and Vibe, you know, they have a monopoly on a lot of the major print magazines, put it like that. And the question is, will enough of our stories be told?
Right.
So we have to keep the fight going. And not that it's a fight, but we just got to keep telling our stories from our perspective.
Oh no,
You know,
sir, it's a fight.
you know,
It's a fight, man.
this
And you
morning
you
I'm
out
looking
there.
at Deadline, and there's a, they made an announcement that Deadline's doing this movie called she started a movie with Chris Hemsworth and Miles Teller, but whoever wrote it for Deadline, saying they start off by saying she's a breakout from Lovecraft Country, and I'm like, we've known who Journey Smollett is for nearly 20 years. Saying, I wouldn't say the Lovecraft Country is breaking her, it's her breakout role. You know,
You mean
it's like
Eve's by You?
East by You. They
Yeah.
obviously didn't think much of Underground,
Underground, yeah.
even though short lived. Nevertheless, it's like, okay.
See, Charles Wilson comes out today like this, like, I got my ID back.
Because you know why? Because when you look at the masses of people that read that stuff, all they're thinking of, and they never even mentioned Underground in her bio.
Right.
In that
Wow.
Deadline article.
Right.
It's like, I remember not so long ago when Rick Fumayama was in talks to direct The Flash before somebody else got on board.
Right.
Someone else over at Deadline mentioned who broke out from the movie Dope, and I'm like, he had 3 studio films before he did Dope. That we remember of. 3 studio films.
Right.
Dope went to Sundance and then got picked up.
Right.
So it's sort of like, that's why, so when they're writing it like that and they have that audience, that's all the audience remembers. And what gets forgotten is the earlier works.
Right. And I was going to say, you got a new younger generation, man, of folks who are not in the know. And it's important for the 3 of us and folks like us to continually beat the drum and remind folks that, yeah, these folks aren't new. They're new to you. They're not new.
Well, yeah, and that's what happens. It's like, we've known who a lot of these individuals are over the years, and we've watched them. There's always that survey about like I remember Girlfriends was never in the top 30 in terms of ratings, national ratings, but within the Black community, it was top 5.
Oh, yeah.
The same thing like Martin, as they say, they never got their flowers, but it's sort of like, we know who these people are.
Right.
So when all of a sudden, they do a film that may bring quote unquote national attention, and I have to say quote unquote because who's considered that, then you see like, then the world starts paying attention. It's like, no, we got to keep those stories up. Right. I don't know if it's, as far as what's going on in the film business and TV world, the last 2 days, they've made announcements as far as one guy voicing a character that Hank Azaria did for The Simpsons. So it's like, but they made sure to mention, he's going to voice this character, but Hank is still going to voice the other 10 characters.
Right.
So Hank Azaria is letting go of one of the characters who happened to be a Black character, but he still got the other one. So, okay, that's nice to let him go. And then, Mike Henry, he left playing Cleveland Brown on Family Guy. He got replaced. I'm like, oh yeah, but let's remember, Mike Henry had that role since 1999. So it took him like 20 plus years to realize, oh, let me get woke, So
right.
In the meantime, you have, a lot of festivals are going on right now. You have the New York Film Festival happening. MLK FBI, which played at Toronto, is also playing there. You have Steve McQueen's Small Acts anthology. 3 of the 5 films are playing there. So Urban World is currently going on as well. So you had recently David Oyelowo, who premiered his film The Waterman at Toronto, but it was the opening night film for Urban World. And
Right.
he did a discussion right afterwards with Ava. And then they've also had some talks with Nia DaCosta in regards to Candyman, and Rada Blank in regards to her film, The 40-Year-Old Version, which played at Sundance, will be released in a few weeks by Netflix on Netflix. So those are certainly a few films out there. And then, like I said, we've got AFI coming up. It was announced that Macro film, Really Love, by Angel Christie Williams, if I'm saying it correct, directed. So we still have a lot more films yet to play out. that that we need to mention. So that way people are aware. Whether they make money or not, that's the audience. But at least as long as they're aware, it puts it on a radar. That's all we want.
All right. So also talk a little bit about Aldous Hodge, man, and this announcement yesterday that he is joining the film Black Adam for DC's EU.
Well, he's playing Hawkman and Black Adam, which is good because obviously in the comic book it was always portrayed or colorized as white. So like it's good that a black actor can play a white role in that, because then now it's like it shouldn't have to be that they have to play a black character. We've had talks in the past where there was rumors that Michael B. Jordan was looked at to play Superman. Obviously, Lawrence Fishburne played Perry White in the Superman series. So Aldous, it's good for him. Obviously, when you do any of these DC or Marvel films, that's good paper. In terms of your pocket. Because they tend to do well. Mm-hmm. And Dwayne Johnson is also a good actor in terms of bringing numbers to the box office. So they'll give him more visibility. So he's been on that trajectory for a good minute now since, he did Leverage, then did Straight Outta Compton, then did Underground. And then he's been doing, he appeared in a Tom Cruise movie, the Jack Reacher movie.
What Women Want.
What Women Want. And then he obviously was in this year's box office hit, The Invisible Man. So like he's going to be appearing in the One Night in Miami playing Jim Brown in Regina King's movie. So he's getting the visibility. And let's not forget the film he played last year opposite Alfre Woodard.
Oh yeah, Clemency.
So he's getting to work. We just got to keep putting him out there because the more we tell his story, the more he's being looked upon in the lead role. Somebody's got to keep. It shouldn't be 1 to 5 people. There should be enough of them, enough of them, so that way they're looked upon in lead roles, and they're being, and the more lead roles can come for them. Like it's nice to be a part of ensemble, but when you can start lead, can you lead an audience? Can you be a box office star? You can be a movie, you can be an actor, or you can be a movie star, and you can be both.
Right. All right, Wilson. Well, normally we would let you go on and on, man, but we got Dawn Porter coming up next, man, and I've got a lot to talk about with her, including the way I see it. Now that you have 2 sites in 2 different areas to send people.
I don't have 2 sites. I have one site, blackfilmtv.com. There's 2 accounts regarding IG. You can get both stories there. Always find me on Twitter and on Facebook and on the site blackfilmtv.com.
So, and people can find you, repeat that, they can find you where now?
blackfilmtv.com, which is where you go for, your normal daily dose of information. Mm-hmm. And if you have to find it through social, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. Obviously my name is Wilson Morales. You can find it on Instagram. You'll see where I'm at.
I just wanted to hear him say it again. That's all.
The one and only.
And spelled out.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, Dawn, she has a good film. It's good that not only is in theaters, but it's going to play on MSNBC. So it stretches out. Not that often you can get documentaries shown. And she's had a good year. It's not that many times you get a black filmmaker with 2 films out in theaters in 1 year.
Man, kick Stanley Nelson square in the butt this year, boy. Like, wow.
Stanley Nelson's out there. Sam Pollard is out there. So I could be wrong. Let's just say female filmmaker. Let's just bring it down.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
If I don't know my history, I'll say that's not that often you find a black female filmmaker to get 2 films out.
All right, so brother, I will get up with you, Wilson. Congratulations one more time, man, on reclaiming your property.
Yes.
And we will definitely get up with you next month, my brother. Next week. All right, man. You take care and enjoy your week.
Bye.
All right, and of course, Charles, in our audience, that is Wilson Morales, who joins us at the top of every show, every episode, to give us the rundown and recap on what's going on in entertainment. And you about to say, Charles?
I meant to ask. I don't know if you heard me, but is and A-N-D, or is it and the symbol? So who knows? But we'll find him. But I
Oh
can't
yeah. Well, you can
keep.
always find I mean, social media, man. Just Google those folks, man. All right. So without any further ado, oh, go ahead, Charles. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
It's great news that he's got his property back. So I think that's worth mentioning and celebrating that, people are starting to recognize Wilson Morales as being who he is, a great innovator and a voice in the black film sphere that we haven't had, that we need.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. Well, it is about 17 minutes after the hour, and our next guest is an award-winning documentary filmmaker whose work has appeared on HBO, PBS, Discovery, and Netflix, among others. As Wilson said, she has had two documentaries out this year to critical acclaim. The first one, of course, was John Lewis' Good Trouble. Her latest one is The Way I See It. And I'm going to bring in Dawn Porter, who I tweeted last night when I saw the film. After I got finished with it, I was like, this is probably my favorite documentary filmmaker right now. And I love that story a lot in that documentary. Charles, did you get a chance to check it out? Or you didn't see it last night because you had to bounce?
All of it. I did see about half of it.
Oh, yeah. It's
Hi,
really, really good.
Christina from Focus.
Yes, Christina from Focus. Why are you on instead of Dawn?
So I just wanted to make sure Dawn got on okay. She has the link. I can text her.
Christina, you realize you're live right now from Focus. So did you have a Focus plug? Did you want to say anything about what's coming up with Focus while we're waiting on Dawn?
Well, this movie is great that Dawn is coming on for.
We're both laughing like, it is. We agree.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. I mean, this is the new Zoom world that we're in right now, which is why I was like, why is Christina on instead of Dawn?
I thought she was coming in Christina.
As Christina. Right,
Yeah.
right. That's what I was thinking too. So, but as we wait, Charles, so I had an opportunity, as I said, to check it out last night. And of course, I am a huge fan of Dawn Porter's work. I love John Lewis' Good Trouble. I also had an opportunity through Netflix to see RFK for President. I think that was the correct title of it.
Bobby Kennedy.
Is it Bobby Kennedy for President? Yeah. So I really, really like that as well. So I like her style and I like her perspective on what she does. I also understand that she's going to be working on a documentary about Vernon Jordan. So looking at what she has already done, I can't wait for that because I love, and I want to talk, and once we get her on, I want to talk about her perspective because we all know documentaries are told from a single lens, right? So they're told from a single perspective. And I want to find out, because, I'm always inquisitive when I talk to documentary filmmakers about, sometimes subjects are obvious, right? We talked about Stanley Nelson earlier, and, he's done films on HBCUs or Miles Davis or the Black Panthers, right? So you have to understand that if you're picking subjects out, there are subjects that are probably near and dear and sometimes personal to you. So I want to find out or understand what the methodology, what she's looking at in these different perspectives as she's coming up with different subjects for documentaries.
And it can be a hard focus for a documentarian to keep a fresh focus, because if they repeat the same style too many times, people tend to tune out what you're doing. So, Bobby Kennedy for President and John Lewis seem to run together almost. They have that connective tissue.
Right.
So this new document, the way I see it, I was glad to see that she had a little bit of a different perspective in the way she was presenting the information in the video. So I mean, I'm excited to hear what she's going to do with Vernon Jordan's work as well, because it's a person that not a lot of people know as deeply, even as John Lewis. Some people just didn't really know John Lewis as deeply as they should have known. So I think it's going to be a very interesting piece of work. Hopefully she can pull it off.
Well, you know, it's interesting because we were talking about this earlier when Wilson was on, and Wilson was talking about you have people now who really are young in the business and don't really understand that some of these actors have been putting in work for maybe 25, 30 years, and they'll see a singular thing that they've done that's more recent and think that, you know, oh, yes, this is your breakout role. No, it's actually not your breakout role. They've been working for a long time. You just haven't been aware of their filmography or what they've done. And in the case of somebody like Vernon Jordan, like you were talking about earlier, Vernon Jordan is someone that folks who are in a political space have understood what Vernon Jordan's impact has been for decades. And I mean, working with different presidents and different, you know, being an advisor to different people. So much like the journey that Reggie Hudlin undertook about a year or so ago when he talked about Clarence Avant and the Black Godfather, I see Vernon Jordan's story closely mirroring something like that, because
Right.
here's a guy who rose to, he was the ultimate kingmaker. And I'm anxious to see, and I'm sure Dawn Porter has shown, shown it, an ability in the work that I've seen her over, especially over the last 2 years, that I think Jordan's subject or Jordan's story would be fascinating. It would be, you know, would give fascinating opportunities, because I think, you know, we know basic history about Vernon Jordan,
Right.
but I think that this documentary will probably uncover even more information on him. Excuse me. I'm looking at Christina's name. Christina, are we good? Or I think she's on mute, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on. We're waiting on Dawn Porter right now, so this is online with us, as you can see the name is the rep from the studio, which has never happened to us before. So, you know, this stuff is live, Charles. And I tell you all the time, man, in the 30 some odd years I've been doing this, man, you got to be prepared for every possibility, bro. Every possibility.
Absolutely. And this is, again, one of those times where you just got to go with the flow. And so I wanted to ask you, because we never really discussed it before on the show. Have you had an opportunity to talk about the Oscars new initiative that they're starting?
Well, I have an answer for that. We have not talked about it, but I think Dawn Porter is actually on now, as you can see on screen. So I'm trying to figure this whole thing out.
I am. I'm so sorry.
No, we're good. So we can let Christina go.
Okay. Hi, Christina.
Thank you, Christina, for everything.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. All right. So, Dawn, I introduced you. I'm going to have to do it all over again. This wonderful intro. So let's try this one more time. Our next guest is an award-winning documentary filmmaker whose work has appeared on HBO, PBS Discovery, and Netflix, among others. This is the second of 2 documentaries that this talented, amazing sister, who will not answer my personal emails, has produced this year. Her latest, of course, is The Way I See It, which I watched last night and immediately went to IG and she answered back. So she saw that last night. Dawn Porter, I've been waiting for you for a minute, because I've told you and I've written that I love your work. And this latest documentary, I didn't know how to feel. There were times I was crying. There were times that I was swelling with pride. I was like, man, this sister is my favorite documentary filmmaker right now. So I am so honored to have you on our show today.
I am so thrilled to be here. And thank you for all of that. You know, how you said, like, you don't know whether to laugh or cry during The Way I See It. I mean, that's pretty much how we were making it for, you know, the last couple of years. So, but thank you. That's extraordinarily sweet of you, particularly because I kept you waiting, which I'm so sorry about.
No, it's not a problem. But I will just open by saying that when you really got on my radar is, you know, I saw, of course, John Lewis' Good Trouble, right? And I really like that a lot. I was on Netflix probably a week or so after that, and I guess they were playing. Is it? I keep messing the title up. It's Bobby Kennedy for president.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. I didn't want to mess it up. I was saying RFK for president, but I watched that, and in that, which I love that documentary as well. And I think the thing that I like about the work that you do, and I think we were talking a little bit about it as we were waiting for you, is that you have a perspective about certain subjects, but then I'm not saying you add more heart to them. There's a Dawn Porter-esque thing you do with these documentaries where you take subjects that we're familiar with and they somewhat are enhanced in a way. And it's not something that you're doing. Like if you were making a narrative film, we could call it like a Dawn Porter aesthetic. There's something you do, but there's something in these documentaries.
But you move in with me.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I'm just saying that I watch these things, and especially the one last night. We are aware of who Barack Obama has been for 8 years, and we've seen, all. I'm not going to say we've seen all those photographs because there were many that were new that Pete Souza kind of introduced that never had been seen, or I wasn't following his IG account until last night. Yeah. But the fact that you were able to have Pete weave the stories in of the photographs and being in the room, it gave it a certain amount of, it gave it even additional resonance. And I found myself, man, and I think also it's the timing of it, Dawn.
Yeah.
That what we're living through right now with a leader who is the absolute opposite, the two that he profiled in the film. So that was a long presentation to go, I really liked it a lot, Dawn.
You see, I let you keep going. I was like, and?
He was like, tell me more. Tell me more.
Don't stop.
So I guess my question, I was asking Charles before you got here, is one of the things is that, what is it about, what are you looking for, like in the documentaries or the subjects that you choose to profile? What is it that what is the connective tissue between a Bobby Kennedy, a John Lewis, and Pete Souza, who's profiling Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan?
Thank you for noticing. I think I am looking for, I love those stories where you think you know something, and then there's the ability to, turn the perspective so you can see something else. And also to open up these stories so you can see yourself in them a little bit. Right. So, for Bobby Kennedy, I was teasing Netflix. I was like, this is going to be the blackest Bobby Kennedy you've ever seen, because really a lot of what it's about is his evolution into becoming a civil rights leader. And that evolution was guided by Black people, just 100% undeniable, by John Lewis, by Marian Wright Edelman, by Harry Belafonte, even by Malcolm X. I mean, it was literally guided. He did not begin as a person who was going to become the deep civil rights champion that he became. And so I hadn't heard that story of his life, and I thought that's really interesting. So if you pay attention, that is really what you will see, is that he evolves. And then, the same way for John Lewis, I think people, where they know Mr. Lewis, they know about the moment on the bridge. They might know about his role in the Freedom Rides. Although I don't think people really know, or at least I didn't really know, how deeply involved he was in leading the Freedom Rides and in expanding them and starting them, or that he was the youngest speaker at the March on Washington. So there's all these things that make sense once you know them, but there's more to learn about him. But the big thing for me is, in addition to being that man on the bridge, and people talk about John Lewis in terms of being brave. What they don't talk about is the strategy, what those young people did. And when you want to deconstruct racism, language really matters. So if we only talk about John Lewis as so brave and heroic, it diminishes his intelligence to me. And so my thing was, let's back up from that moment on the bridge. Let's talk about their strategy, how long they studied, that he accepted nonviolence intentionally after studying it. And then, what those young people did, they were clearly following the older, 30-year-olds in Nashville, but it was really those teenagers who planned, executed, and then continued to test until they blew up segregation that had been in place for 100 years. I mean, that is some strategy. Those are generals executing that strategy. So I wanted to highlight that. And then also how he's not always yelling from the mountaintop, that he's actually a very peaceful, calm person. John Lewis was the calmest person I ever met. For someone who could be so full of power, such a powerful orator. And I think that is important to see. He really was a person like you or me. And he would always say, I'm just trying to help out. And I think people thought he was being really humble or whatever, but he really meant that. He would see, he didn't start out going to become Dr. King. He set out to say, what can I do next? There's a problem I see, what can I do? I could go to a meeting. I could bring a friend to a meeting. We could march. He just did one thing in front of the other and kept doing those things. So I see like there's a place for me in that. I'm not brave, but and so while we filmed with him for over a year, and I would say to him, oh, Mr. Lewis, I'm upset about this or that or the next, kids in cages, so many terrible things that have happened. And he would like kind of turn the conversation to what I could do rather than focusing on what I couldn't. And just that little perception shift made me feel lighter. It made me feel less hopeless. It made me feel slightly powerful, just a little perception shift. And I think that's how he lived his life, with looking for the things he could do and then doing them. So for all of these films, I'm really interested in what makes people stand up, what makes people speak up, what makes people change. So for Bobby Kennedy, it was his exposure to poverty. It really was. For John Lewis, it was exposure to racism, but also feeling his power as a young man. And then for Pete, I think it really was his proximity to President Obama. I think he saw the world in a different way because he saw, Barack Obama is certainly not perfect, nobody's perfect, but he saw a steadiness and an evenness in the face of crisis that made him think this is really important in a leader. I think he also saw a lot of racism, that if you're not, Pete's parents are from the Azores, so he experienced some racism there. He's like, as he would say, he's not quite white. To you and me, he might be white, but he's like, no, I was, people would make racist comments to him in Massachusetts growing up. But I think seeing what Barack Obama endured in terms of the attacks, and then seeing what he was doing as a leader profoundly affected him, so that when he left, as he says, he could not just be silent. Right. So that question of what makes people speak up.
Well, you mentioned that you don't think that you're brave. I'm Charles Kirkman, and I write for FilmGordon.com. But I think when you say you're not brave, I think it takes a lot of courage to step into these movies and give us the relatability that you have been able to. Because when we see the stories about Bobby Kennedy, we see John Lewis, and now we see Pete, we see ourselves in them. And I think it takes a lot of intelligence, a lot of strength to be able to, like you say, flip the script just a little bit so that we can see and experience what they are going through at that time. So I say all that because I'm getting to, is there anything that after you've done these movies that you say, I really didn't mean to make it like this, but it came out this way and it just works really well?
I think you're always surprised by what the actual movie ends up being. Like I start with an idea in my head, and then when you're actually executing it, the other thing, of course, is, all movies are collaborations. So, interestingly, John Lewis and Pete Sousa movie were edited by the same woman. Totally different films, totally different, and I love that we were both able to shift, even though we were making literally, like, she put down the edit on John Lewis, it went off to the finishing people, and then we were into Pete Sousa movie, like literally like a week apart that we just started. And so, kind of having somebody you trust like that, who you can push and pull with stylistically, but also like she knew my style, like kind of, I like to do long interviews. I like to look for those quiet moments that say something. I like to give viewers enough information so they can make their own opinions. I really like to try and do that, not be too heavy-handed, which I have an opinion, but I feel like I'm clear in my opinion, so that you can say, all right, well, that's just what she believes. She's a Barack Obama fan, which I am, but I think for the right reasons. There's evidence to support, I did not agree with every decision the president made, but I appreciated and respected the process. I respected that he was putting women, people of color from different backgrounds, incredibly intelligent people, and he was encouraging debate and conversation. I appreciate that kind of leader, and I'm always like, when Barack Obama was president, I didn't feel like I needed to read the fine print of the UN charter to make sure we weren't violating it. I was like, he got it. There's like teams of people who are actually doing it. And we don't have that now. We've been robbed of the luxury of relying on the governmental structures that control our lives. If they handed you a vaccine today, I wouldn't take it. If the FDA said it's safe, I wouldn't believe them. Right. That is a terrible loss. Right. I have two teenagers. I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, and I see the toll it's taken on them. They don't believe anything. Right. What a way to live. Yeah. Where they're always feeling like they have to question things. It makes you retreat.
Well, there's one. It's questioning is not bad, but this kind of questioning that we're going through now, the lack of trust that we're going through now is very bad and different and uncomfortable and unimaginable for us to live through as a country. And watching your films give us hope that maybe someday we can get back to that level where we can trust that we have competency in our leaders.
Yeah, you literally took the words right out of my mouth, because I was going to say, it's ironic that within 2 years, you've had Bobby Kennedy's doc, which was all about hope. And then, fast forward 2 years later, and of course you have John Lewis, who epitomized that hope, and then passing the torch to the next generation, which became Barack Obama. But I wanted to go back to one point you made, which I thought was a vital point of the Bobby Kennedy story. And you talked about his transformation with poverty, but I think there's a scene, and I had known about this prior to your documentary, but it was good that you kind of illuminated it, where there was a meeting where I think it was James Baldwin, Lorraine Hansberry, and several others that met with Bobby Kennedy. And at that point, to use the terminology, he wasn't woke yet. And Lorraine Hansberry was not happy with him.
They told him the truth.
Yes.
And he couldn't avoid it. And, you have choices when present. But first of all, like, going back to the fact that he invited them.
Right.
right? Okay, that's A. So, that was, they then took the opportunity presented, and instead of telling him he was great and the great white hope and the great savior, they told him the truth. So, we really have to thank them. What if they had told him everything was going to be fine? They pushed him so hard, and he was angry. But then a lot of like what Bobby would do is be angry, but then do something. So March on Washington, President Kennedy did not want that to happen. They thought there would be violence and riots and all the rest of it. So there was a lot of negotiating about that. Sending troops when the protesters were trapped in a church with a white mob outside, they did not want to do that. Sending troops to guard people at the integration, that whole situation, they did not want to do any of those things, but they did do them, but they had to be pushed.
Yeah.
And, I think about that a lot when I think about people criticizing Black Lives Matter, or criticizing activists, criticizing Colin Kaepernick. People have to be pushed.
It's funny. I've seen so many documentaries recently. We've had, and of course, all month long we've been celebrating Black women directors. So between Lisa Cortez, Melissa
Lisa's my
Hayes,
girl. Yeah.
oh yeah, and
Melissa's
she
my
said the same
girl.
thing about. She said the same thing about you, and of course, Nima Barnett, who we were like, ooh. But I was watching a documentary, and I'm not sure whose documentary it was in, but there was a talk around Lyndon Johnson and the whole thing that John Lewis was involved with, which became Selma and everything else that happened. But they were saying that Lyndon Johnson couldn't go back to Congress because he didn't have enough power. And Andrew Young said, Dr. King was like, okay, we're going to go get him some power. And that led to, Edmund Pettus Bridge and what John Lewis, his heroic actions. And for people who say, man, all he did was walk across the bridge, you tried being John Lewis, because when I thought about that, even when I watched it in your film, and I was like, man, how much courage and intestinal fortitude did it take to understand that we're going to walk across this bridge, they're waiting for us, and it's going to be really bad on the other side. And he did it anyway.
That's right.
Sacrifice anyway. Right. So as Charles has said to you, and I've said to you about your films, I think the way you continuously illuminate these events that are in your stories, first of all, we thank you for that. And as we were waiting for you to come, and Christina was on the phone, we were talking about, I understand you're working on a Vernon Jordan doc. And I said, if history has shown us anything with what Dawn Porter has done, can't wait to see that one, because I'm sure there's going to be some stuff I'm going to go, I did not know.
Well, Mr. Jordan
did that.
I'm glad you brought up the Vernon doc. It will be on December 28th.
Damn, you got 3 in 1 year?
Movies in a year? Who are you? How do you do that? How do you go from one movie to the next movie to the movie just like that?
That one.
Wait, hold on. Before you give an answer, Dawn. The big running joke is every year I would go to Sundance and I would always run into Stanley Nelson, right? And I would tell him, I go, how are you pumping these docs out one a year? I forget the sister's name who did the Shirley Chisholm doc, and then she did
Shala Lynch.
Right. So I'm like, Shala's taking 6-7 years to raise money. Melissa Hayslip worked on Mr. Soul for years. And then all of a sudden, I see John Lewis get trouble. I go, man, yeah, that's gonna be in running for the Black Reel Awards next year, man. That's her. Wait, she got another one coming out? Wait. So does that mean for like the next 3 years you won't have any docs coming out until like say 2023, 24 after this year?
No, I'm working on this series with Oprah about mental health. So
wow.
That comes out in May. But there's a big team on that. So Mr. Jordan's film,
Vernon Jordan,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So that I was really done a while ago, but it took a while to get distribution. So it just seems like it only takes 10 minutes to make these movies. That is not true. It actually takes years.
Dawn.
And then John Lewis movie was supposed to come out several months ago, but because of COVID, we got pushed. So, the plan was not boom, boom, double, but it does make an interesting story because I think people can see more clearly. To me, they speak to each other. John Lewis was all about saying, if you see something that's not right, not fair, not just, say something. And that Pete in his mid-60s is doing that. Mm. He is the ultimate witness to horror, So he once upon a time was a straight journalist, keeps his opinions to himself, and he was like, I can't do that now. It's too much, too dangerous. So I love how those movies speak to each other. So you asked earlier, like, what's the relationship between,
right?
And so there's that, and also Bobby Kennedy is in that, like he was pushed to speak up and do something, and when he did, he really, really, really did it, what appears to be risky at the time often ends up being people's greatest accomplishments. Bobby Kennedy sent food after he invited a very young Marion Wright Edelman, and she testified about poverty in Mississippi, about starving Black Americans, starving. He not only went to Mississippi, he came back home and he insisted that the U.S. Department of Agriculture send food aid to the South.
Right. So we were talking earlier about, for people who are documentary filmmakers, they're always telling stories that are near and dear to their hearts. You said that you are working on a series with Oprah on mental illness. Is there a connection there? Is there something that sparked you that you read that and said, I think that's something that I can invest my time in?
Well, one thing, it's Oprah. So
that's the connection.
She's going to invest in. Right. I mean, it's Oprah. But no, mental health issues, like every health issues, when they affect the Black and Brown communities, they do so in an excruciating way. And because of stigma, because of lack of health care. And, when you look at, we are right now living in a perpetual state of trauma that we're not talking about, when people very well-meaning, my well-meaning white friends would call me up or call my sons after George Floyd was murdered. Mm-hmm. And I had to be like, you're traumatizing them. You're making it seem like police are hunting them. And I'm trying to make them feel safe enough to go outside. They just got over, they have to wear a mask. The plague is coming, and now they're like, police are hunting Black boys in the streets for real. Mm-hmm. So that trauma, when we started doing this series and looking after what we were like, so many of our stories were Black and Brown people. Right. And because poverty is trauma, and too many of us live in poverty, race, microaggressions, swallowing all that, even we've all had this where that moment where you're like, do I say something about that or do I let that one go? Right? Like, who wants to be the constantly angry person correcting everybody? That's not fun for us, but swallowing it is physically harmful.
Correct.
So understanding that those things are contributing to our collective mental not well-being, like that's, Oprah was seeing that with her girls in South Africa. Mm-hmm. And she, over the years, has done a lot to push mental health issues into the public discussion. And, I just really appreciated that she has taken on something so complicated. Mm-hmm. And she's like in it, like we have the calls like this, which my kids think are hysterical. They're like, oh, it's Oprah. I'm like, it is Oprah. I don't know what to tell you. It is her.
Mom, Oprah's on the line. So before we let you go, Dawn, you have an amazing painting that, I've been looking at.
Oh, I was going to ask about that.
Isn't she beautiful?
Yes. Please elaborate. Please educate the audience on who this is.
This is actually one of a series of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Jill Davis in San Francisco has these like art parties, and she features Black artists. And I just fell in love with this lady. I couldn't afford the triptych, but I got one of her. And the artist is Grace Lynn, I think Hayes or something like that. But when you're here up close, you see she's got this really dark skin, this beautiful outfit, but then her eyes are blue under there.
Oh, okay.
So something's going on.
So it spoke to you when you saw that. It was like, I got to have that.
I gotta have it. Yes. And so it just makes me really happy, this painting.
So literally it's a Dawn Porter painting, because you see this, there's something there that just changes your perspective a little bit, the blue eyes.
And
So
I was attracted to her dark skin.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even looking at her eyes. And then literally I got it home and I was like,
well, I like the juxtaposition of her skin tone and then kind of like a very colorful palette.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you know, Dawn, this is why, since we've been doing what I call the home edition of our show, which is why it's so much fun. And this has really been an amazing month that we end with you. And when I say end, we're not ending because Dawn doesn't really know it. She's coming back on the show in December at some point to talk about her Vernon Jordan doc, because you are not going to get away, because Rita had a contact earlier. You would have been on for John Lewis over the summer. But Dawn, I've told you online, and I will tell you publicly that, you know, Charles will tell you, we know a lot of filmmakers. We talk to a lot of them. And when I say favorites, we're not saying to Melissa, Nima, Ava, and everybody else we know that we don't love your work. Dawn's work is like that painting. It just speaks to me. I look at the blue eyes, the dark skin, the colorful palette. It's something there that we just like. I just like the style that you make these documentaries and the way I see it. If for people out here people out there that are listening, you have got to check that out, because, you know, as I've told Kevin Wilmot, I think every project that has come out over the last 6 or 7 months that kind of has race woven or weaved or woven into the story, whichever word I'm using, and one of them is incorrect. I think that they're very timely right now, because race is definitely an issue, always has been an issue for people of color, but the other side has made it an issue as we get closer to November the 3rd in this election. And Dawn, you know, the fact that you have 2 movies on the table, the only thing you're missing right now, watch this, wait for it. The only thing you're missing right now is a documentary on Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and you'd be in there. You would have Obama, RGB.
What was I doing? How did I miss that?
Watch this. You sure you don't have an RGB doc that you finished?
Wait, let me look.
Be like,
I forgot something.
That was one thing that we've mentioned before, was that it was really great that you got the John Lewis doc done in time for him to see it and appreciate the work, and for us to give him the appreciation for his work.
You know, in that, I flew to his house. We didn't even know he was sick. We finished the movie and he was fine. We couldn't keep up with him. He was so busy. And then, so we finished the movie end of November. He was diagnosed in December.
Wow.
So I was living in California. I flew to Washington. I went to his house, and it was Valentine's Day. Brought my laptop because we didn't know how to cast it onto the TV, and I didn't have a DVD or anything. And we just watched it together in his house, in his living room. And he kept saying, "It's so powerful. It's so powerful." And I said, "Mr. Lewis, your life is powerful." I get upset. And then we just like visited, you know what I mean? It was a February cold day, but it was nice inside his house, and he was having a good day. He had, he didn't have treatment coming up, so we just visited. So, I didn't know that was last time I'd see him.
So wait a minute. So who got you the footage that you included at the end of the film where he actually went down to Black Lives Matters Plaza?
Yeah.
And so how did you get, because I saw that, I said, how'd she get that in the film?
His chief of staff called me up. He was weak, but he was like, okay. And he said he really, really wants to go see the Black Lives Matter, art installation in DC. It's pretty near his home. And we had been talking a lot. I, kind of got close with his chief of staff, and he said, I want to bring a photographer. So then he sent me, he said, do you know anybody? That's really why I was calling. I was like, do you know any photographers? And I said, I know a couple. He knew a couple. And so he sent me some images, and I was like, pick that guy. That's the guy to go do it. And then I did say, like, if he goes, like, have him do his John Lewis thing. And he did it.
Wow.
So, but I think it says a lot about Mr. Lewis that the last time he's photographed is there. So when people say, does he support the young Black Lives Matter activists? Of course he does. And he made sure to take a picture. Nobody can question his intent in standing there that way.
Well, Don, we got to run, but before we get out of here, let people know not only where they can see The Way I See It, but also promote your John Lewis Good Trouble doc. I mean, promote everything you got, Don. Go ahead, go.
So John Lewis Good Trouble is on tomorrow night, Sunday at 9 p.m. on CNN. This is the uninterrupted film version, so I really recommend that people watch this one with no commercials. And then The Way I See It is in theaters now. And it is also going to be on MSNBC. It is the first film. They're launching their film department with this movie. So I'm very proud of that. And that'll be October 16th, right after Rachel Maddow. So 10 o'clock Eastern. So yeah, and then Bobby Kennedy is still on Netflix. So if you want to watch that series, it's there. So you can have a, I don't know, a retrospective.
you can see how it all weaves together.
You can see, you're right, yourself, how it all reads together. So.
All right, and we will see you in, let's see, it'll be October. We'll see you in 2 months.
2 months.
Vernon Jordan. Do we have a date for that yet, or is that
December 28th, National PBS? Yes.
Oh, so it sounds like you're on the Christmas show. Is that what I'm on?
It is also, I love Mr. Jordan, and I think you will learn some things. It really does fill in a hole, because if you think about it, he's just a bit older than Mr. Lewis. Right. But that 5 years was a big difference in civil rights activity. He was not in the middle of the 1960s. He was already kind of out of, he was in the Urban League. He was doing that. So, yeah. So working on all of these, like, what a good life, right?
Well, I remember somebody saying, I think Kevin Wilmot said he was a race man, because all his movies deal with race. You are a race woman, for sure.
Proud of it.
Dawn Porter, Charles, do you want to say something short before we let her go?
I'm going to let her go. I've said enough. I thank you for your work, and I look forward to future whatever endeavors that you're going to have. I'm looking forward to Vernon Jordan. I'm looking forward to everything.
Great. Thank you all so much.
Dawn Porter, you are a treasure, young lady. You go and enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I will be in touch via email. Maybe I can get an answer now. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Now I know who you are.
Sister, you take care and enjoy your day.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
All righty. And that, of course, was my favorite documentary filmmaker that's out right now. That is Dawn Porter. You heard the conversation. Charles, I really wanted to extend that. We're gonna have some fun. Well, I'll call you after the show. I'll tell you why we did what we did. But we got about 10 good minutes to go, and I got to review some movies, man. So, Charles, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Charles normally would give me this script if we were in studio, but thank God I copied it and we have it now. Welcome back to our final segment. And as usual, this week's reviews are brought to you by the FilmGordon.com. Experience film through the eyes of a true film addict. Check out all of our film content at thefilmgordon.com. And this week there are 3 movies that I'm going to try to burn through in about 10 minutes, Charles. And the first one is a film that has local ties. It tells the story of a young filmmaker who returns home after many years away to write a script about his childhood, only to find his neighborhood unrecognizable and his childhood friends being scattered to the winds. The film, of course, is called Residue, which is playing on Netflix right now. It is directed by the son of independent film legend Halle Jarima, and I think his name, I'm going to take a guess, is Marawai Jarima. I'm just taking a guess. If I got that wrong, sir, my apologies. But Charles, I had an opportunity to watch this film earlier this week. And what struck me about it was that it was a story that almost played like a documentary, but it told the story, as I said, of a guy who had gone to California to go to school, and he'd been away for 15 years, and he comes back to his block, his neighborhood, where he actually lived in Northeast DC around Eckington Place. So if you are a native Washingtonian, you know Sirius XM studios and everything is there. We're here in the nation's capital, so this is our city. And it felt so authentic that it made me upset, Charles, because you and I have had these conversations. I've lived in Washington, D.C. since in the D.C. metropolitan area since 1985, and I've seen the shift over the last 10 to 15 years, how this city, which was once Chocolate City, has now become something entirely different. And Residue does an amazing job of showing that in film. And when I said it made me upset, it's because you and I both kind of had the same vocations over the last couple of years. And we've seen the shift in the city, Charles.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Mr. Jarima does an amazing job of telling this story, so much so that by the time it was over, my fists were balled up tight. And I was like, oh. So I'm giving this brother a B for Residue. I thought the performances, when you talk about performances in a film that almost feels like a documentary, you know, I think it's really solid acting that a film can make you really feel something intently. And I would just tell people you should just go check it out, because gentrification is not just an issue that has happened in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, but it has happened in New York and in LA and Chicago and other cities across the country, other urban cities, Atlanta. So Residue is a film that really is something that is kind of front and center, where you see folks moving into the neighborhood, not really understanding the histories and the traditions of said neighborhood. So I really, really enjoyed Residue. Now, up next is the documentary that Dawn Porter directed that we just spent about a half an hour talking to her about. And of course, that's The Way I See It, which is a documentary directed and produced by Dawn Porter, revolving around Pete Souza, the former chief official White House photographer. Laura Dern serves as a producer of this film, which follows the life of Pete Souza, who shadowed not just Ronald Reagan in the early 1980s, but Barack Obama through all 8 years. And, you know, this review shouldn't even take long. This one is every official picture that was taken of Barack Obama. Pete Souza was in the room, in the residence, on trips with Obama. And the genius of this is, as Dawn said, he is very apolitical at the beginning of the film. And by the time he gets to the end, he's witnessed so much. He's seen the character of the man. And then after the man leaves office, he's able to contrast literally anything that the current president does. He has a contrasting picture of what the previous president has done. And, you know, they initially, his book, which one of the 2 books that this documentary is based on, is called Shade, where people were like, man, why are you throwing shade at 45? So it's an amazing documentary. As I said, I cried, I laughed. I did not come to terms of endearment though. But this is a really strong documentary. I would give this one either an A- or a B+. I really thought that the work here that Dawn Porter put in, the second of what we now know are 3 documentaries that this sister is putting out in a year, man. You talking about the James Brown of the documentary game right now. Dawn Porter is at the top of the food chain. I mean, and she's not just churning out stuff that's not of high quality. She's banging quality every time out the box. John Lewis, Good Trouble, The Way I See It, a Vernon Jordan doc. Man, sister, look. So that is my take on that. And then finally, the last 3 minutes that we have of the show, the last film I want to tackle is a film called The Glorias, which is a biographic or biopic directed and produced by Julie Taymor, from a screenplay by Taymor and Saren Rule, and it is based on my life on the road by Gloria Steinem. It stars Julianne Moore and Alicia Vikander portraying Steinem from ages 20 to 40. Timothy Hutton, Lorraine Toussaint, Janelle Monáe, Bette Midler all fill out the cast, which tells the story of Steinem from her childhood in the 1940s, making her way through the women's liberation movement. And the film takes you up to the election of President Trump and the Women's March that happened like that following weekend, if you remember that, man, where they were wearing the pea hats on their head. This film, which again, when we talk about, we were just teasing Dawn about making race films, again, a timely story, because one of the big allies in the feminist movement, of course, was the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is portrayed in the film as well, and the relationship between Steinem and Ginsburg, which doesn't take a huge part of the story. The fact that RGB is in the film, along with the life that Steinem led and what she meant to the feminist movement. I just thought that all the performances in this film, including Vikander and what is the sister's name? I just said her name a couple of minutes ago. Who was
Dern?
Not Laura Dern. Julianne Moore. My apologies. I thought they did an amazing job in this film. Hutton, who played Steinem's father. I really liked this film a lot, and I thought that it was another one, Charles, when I watched it, it made me swell with pride because I'm understanding that despite my wild, raucous past, that I am truly a feminist, that I understand that I had a mama and sisters and women who have been close to me in my life who have helped shape and mold and make me into the man that I am. So Steinem's story, I thought, really did a good job of, I'm not going to necessarily say rehabilitating her image, because I know that there's always this disconnect between, when you talk about the feminist movement, between white women in the feminist movement and African Americans in the feminist movement. And I think the film, I'm not going to say it glosses over it. I'm just going to say that I've heard different things, and I probably need to do more research to find out the connective tissue of what where Steinem lies in that. But I thought the film did a good job when you talk about Lorraine Toussaint, who played a true life character, Janelle Monáe, who did as well. So I like this film a lot. I'd give The Glorias a solid B. And I think I'm good, man. I'm trying to race out of here because we already got to do some editing when Christina from Focus was on the show.
Well, I'm going to take you to task, Mr. Feminist, and we got to get you to start saying RBG.
Did I say RGB?
Yes.
Did I think about Robert Griffin?
Yeah.
RBG. My apologies. Thank you. That's why you there, brother. But let us run. And Charles, as I say in conclusion every week before we leave the show, please see something good at the movies. There are some excellent choices that are in streaming services and in theaters now. And I'm just going to leave it up to you, man. So episode 418, that's a wrap. Charles, until next week, man, I'm out, bruh. You enjoy. And again, another solid effort from you, my brother.
All right.
You take care, man. Enjoy your week, everybody.